You don't notice it happening at first. That's what makes covert narcissistic abuse so dangerous. There's no obvious moment where your identity disappears. No single conversation where you suddenly stop trusting yourself. It happens slowly, quietly, psychologically. At first, it feels like love, attention, connection, intensity. You feel chosen, seen, important. But underneath that emotional closeness, something else is forming, conditioning. And over time, your entire nervous system begins adapting around one person's emotions. That's how the rewiring begins. Not through physical force, through emotional control. At first, the corrections are small. The way you speak, the way you react, the tone in your voice, your memory of events. You start hearing things like, "That's not what happened. You're too sensitive. You always overreact. You're imagining things." And because the relationship still has moments of affection, you dismiss the discomfort. You explain it away. You tell yourself, "She's stressed. She didn't mean it. I probably misunderstood." But something inside you starts changing. You become more cautious. You think carefully before speaking. You replay conversations in your head afterward, trying to figure out where things went wrong. You start monitoring their moods constantly. The tension in the room, their facial expressions, their tone, their silence. Not because you're weak. Because your nervous system learned their emotional state controlled your safety. That's survival conditioning. And eventually, you stop acting naturally altogether. You stop saying what you really think. You stop expressing disappointment. You stop disagreeing. You stop bringing up your needs. Because every emotional risk feels dangerous. So you adapt. You become quieter, smaller, more careful. And this is where the psychological damage deepens. Because eventually, the gaslighting no longer needs to come from them. It starts happening inside your own mind. You begin questioning yourself automatically. Maybe I really am the problem. Maybe I'm too emotional. Maybe I deserved it. That's the moment the rewiring becomes internal. You stop trusting your memory, your instincts, your emotions, your perception of reality. And over time, you slowly become dependent on their version of reality instead of your own. That's why trauma bonds are so powerful. People think victims stay because they're weak. But trauma bonds are neurological. Your brain becomes trapped between fear and relief, cruelty and comfort, punishment and affection. And intermittent kindness becomes emotionally addictive. The same person hurting you becomes the person temporarily relieving the pain they created. That cycle changes you psychologically. You stop recognizing yourself. You become emotionally exhausted, hypervigilant, anxious, disconnected. You lose confidence in your own mind. And one of the most painful parts is this. Most people around you never see it. Because covert narcissistic abuse happens privately, subtly, psychologically. The manipulation hides inside confusion, inside guilt, inside silence, inside self-doubt. And while everyone else sees a relationship, you slowly feel your identity disappearing from the inside. That's what happened to me. For years, I thought I was becoming emotionally unstable. I thought I was failing as a partner. I thought if I just became calmer, more understanding, more patient, things would finally improve. But the more I abandoned myself, the worse it became. Because narcissistic control doesn't create emotional safety. It creates emotional dependency. And eventually, you wake up one day and realize you no longer know who you are without the relationship controlling your emotional state. That realization is devastating. But it's also the beginning. Because once you finally see the pattern, the conditioning starts losing power. You begin reconnecting with your instincts, your emotions, your voice, Your reality. Slowly. Painfully. But truthfully. And if this happened to you, you are not weak. Your mind adapted to survive an emotionally unsafe environment. That's not failure. That's psychological survival. And healing begins the moment you stop seeing yourself through their eyes and start trusting your own reality again.